In the vast wilderness of Africa, a tale of power and perseverance emerges. A story where leadership is tested, rivalries are born, and survival is an unending battle. At the center of it all is a formidable ruler who carved out his dominion amidst lurking foes and ambitious challengers. His reign was unshakable. Within his territory, every creature was compelled to bow to the might of the Lion King, Sekekama. This compelling saga of an extraordinary animal dynasty is brought to life in National Geographic's riveting series, Savage Kingdom, spanning 4 dramatic seasons. Back in 2014, in Botswana's untamed Soviet marsh, where the arid Kalahari Desert meets the lush Okavango Delta, a remarkable natural stage was set. Before Sekekama's arrival, this region was lesser known in wildlife lore. The Okavango Delta, nourished by a life-giving river that meanders for miles, provided sustenance to countless animals. Yet nature's rhythm was merciless. Long, dry seasons pushed creatures to adapt or perish. In the south, where the river fed an expansive marshland, herbivores gathered in abundance. It was here, amidst this fertile yet perilous terrain, that Sekekama would rise to claim his throne. Together with his brother Torn Nose, Sekekama roamed in search of a pride to call their own. Torn Nose, ever aware of his brother's ferocious dominance, chose loyalty over rivalry. Their journey from the desert to the delta brought them to an area already inhabited by 2 lion prides, one small and the other larger. The northern pride, though smaller, was fiercely protected by its strong male leader. Sekekama's ambition led them to strike first, targeting the northern pride and dethroning its leader in a matter of weeks. Soon after their conquest, 2 lionesses from the defeated pride, Sato and her sister, became part of Sekekama's growing domain. Sekekama mated with both, but his possessiveness over Sato was clear. He refused to let Torn Nose approach her, relegating his brother to the younger sister instead. Yet, Sekekama's ambitions were far from satisfied. He craved a lioness of greater stature, a queen worthy of standing by his side. His gaze turned southward to the larger pride, where a striking lioness named Matsume caught his attention. The southern pride, though populous, was led by a weak male, a vulnerability Sekekama was quick to exploit. In a ruthless display of dominance, he drove out the pride's leader, killed its cubs, and claimed Matsume as his queen. Matsume's strength and commanding presence made her the perfect match for Sekekama. Instead of uniting the lionesses from the 2 conquered prides into one formidable group, Sekekama chose a different path. He left Satao and her sister behind to rule the northern area, moving south to the marshlands with Matsume, Torn Nose, and their new pride. Confident he had secured his legacy, Sekekama believed the 2 pregnant lionesses he abandoned posed no threat. Little did he know that Satao would become a formidable adversary in her own right. Renowned for his immense size and raw power, Sekekama was a lion to be feared and respected. With Torn Nose as his loyal ally, he ruled the southern territories with an iron paw. The Sekekama pride thrived, expanding with cubs and dominated by the formidable Matsume. Sekekama maintained strict control over his pride. Matsume was exclusively his, and while Torn Nose was permitted to mate with other lionesses, it was only after the king had asserted his dominance. Sekekama's word was law, and his kingdom obeyed, or paid the price. The marshlands, once dominated by a ruthless hyena clan, now had a new ruler who demanded unwavering respect. When the hyenas dared to assert their dominance by targeting the pride's newborn cubs, they faced the wrath of a king. Sekekama, in a brutal display of his might, slaughtered half of the hyena clan, sending an unmistakable message. This territory belonged to him. While his actions earned him more enemies, Sekekama remained unshaken. He knew no coalition of hyenas could rival his strength. Under Sekekama's reign, the pride thrived and introduced an unusual tradition. During hunts, cubs were brought along to observe and learn the tactics of survival. As they matured, the training intensified. They were sent into herds of prey animals to sharpen their instincts, ensuring only the fittest and smartest would survive. This rigorous upbringing molded the pride into a formidable unit, revered for their resilience, hunting prowess, and unyielding spirit. As the saying goes, hardship builds strength, and for Sekekama's cubs, it forged a cold, unrelenting edge. By 2016, the Sekekama pride had grown, with young males stepping into the spotlight. Among them were 3 favored sons, the firstborn of Sekekama and Matsume, destined to carry their father's legacy. Sekekama took a direct role in their upbringing, often joining the lionesses in hunts to demonstrate the strength a ruler must wield. On one such hunt, he brought the 3 princes along, teaching them the art of taking down large prey. However, upon their return, Sekekama witnessed a grave act of defiance. One of his young male cubs dared to approach Matsume, the queen who belonged to Sekekama alone. Torn Nose himself was only allowed access to other lionesses after Sekekama had taken his turn, but Matsume was untouchable. Enraged by the cub's audacity, Sekekama acted swiftly and ruthlessly, snapping the young male's neck in an instant. This brutal punishment served as a chilling lesson to his sons. In this kingdom, Sekekama's rule was absolute and disobedience would not be tolerated. Though they accepted his authority outwardly, the princes began to harbour a simmering resentment, a dangerous fire that could ignite at any moment. Sekekama's reign was not without secrets. Unknown to the rest of the pride, the king maintained a hidden family on the side. His secret mate was none other than Matsume's estranged sister, who was thought to have disappeared long ago. In reality, Sekekama had kept her concealed, mating with her in secret and fathering cubs. Despite his indiscretions, Sekekama's loyalty to his offspring was unwavering, and he eventually decided to integrate his hidden family into the main pride. The arrival of Matsume's sister and her cubs disrupted the delicate balance within the pride. Matsume, faced with the reality of her king's betrayal, had no choice but to accept the newcomers or risk her own survival. Meanwhile, Sekekama's 3 favored sons grew increasingly jealous of their half-siblings, who now commanded much of their father's attention. Their frustration boiled over into open aggression as they attempted to harm the new cubs. But Sekekama's swift retaliation, delivered through bone-crushing blows, left no room for dissent. The message was clear. These cubs were under his protection, and disobedience would not be tolerated. Despite the strict discipline imposed by their father, the 3 princes could no longer suppress their growing frustration. Their anger simmered beneath the surface, fueled by feelings of betrayal and longing for autonomy. One fateful day, a lone male lion trespassed into the pride's territory. Eager to prove themselves, the princes sprang into action, confronting the intruder. Their training under Sekekama bore fruit as they fought fiercely, ultimately defeating the rogue lion. This victory marked their first real taste of power and planted dangerous ideas in their minds. For the first time, they began to see themselves as equals to their father. But this triumph, fleeting as it was, would not prepare them for the reality that Sekekama's strength remained unparalleled. As the swamp began to wither under the relentless dry season, Sekekama's pride shifted their territory northward in search of water and prey. Along the journey, Matsume fell behind and found herself cornered by a lone, powerful lion. Alone and vulnerable, she faced an impossible choice: submit or die. But a true king never abandons his queen. Sekekama, noticing her absence, turned back and arrived just in time to confront the rival. Fueled by rage, he quickly overpowered the intruder, reclaiming his mate and reasserting his dominance. Matsume, her gratitude evident, returned to the pride with her protector. The pride eventually settled near one of the river's last remaining pools, a vital lifeline for all creatures in the drought-stricken land. Plant eaters and predators alike gathered in tense proximity, driven together by their desperate need for water. Every movement carried the weight of survival, with predators poised for ambush and prey constantly on edge. Elsewhere, Satao and her sister watched from a distance as Sekekama's pride thrived under his leadership. The lion who had once defeated their original king and cast them aside now commanded a kingdom stronger than ever. But Satao's bitterness remained. Her cubs, born of Sekekama and his brother, had matured into skilled hunters, inheriting their father's strength and cunning. Driven by her simmering desire for vengeance, Satao began shaping her cubs into warriors, determined to reclaim what she believed was rightfully hers. Her growing resentment culminated in a bold but reckless attempt to challenge Sekekama. Satao's cubs ventured toward the pride, hoping to test their strength. However, Torn-Nose and Sekekama's 3 princes were waiting. The encounter ended swiftly as the young lions were driven back, retreating northward with bruised egos. Once again, Satao felt the sting of defeat and abandonment. As the drought persisted, the landscape became harsher, and the pride struggled to conserve energy. The fragile peace of the territory was shattered with the arrival of 2 lone male lions. Satao, always scheming, saw potential allies in these wanderers. If they could be persuaded to align with her, perhaps she could finally take back the north. The lone lions, however, were more interested in Matsume. Their advance towards the queen provoked Sekekama, who swiftly confronted the intruders. The battle was short but decisive, with Sekekama emerging victorious once more, solidifying his reputation as an unstoppable force. But Satao's determination remained unshaken. Her aging body bore the weight of her many defeats, but her mind was as sharp as ever. She encountered another lone male lion and used her cunning to earn his trust. Within days, she and her sister became pregnant, each seeing this as a final chance to rise again. Yet their new ally proved unreliable, abandoning them and later returning only to cruelly kill some of their cubs. Satao's hatred for Sekekama deepened. Her downfall, she believed, had begun the day he had defeated her first king. Unbeknownst to Sekekama, the seeds of rebellion were taking root. Satao and her sister found unexpected allies in 2 lionesses who had been cast out of Sekekama's pride after attempting to dethrone Matsume. The 4 outcasts united, bound by shared grievances and a mutual desire for revenge. Their bitterness and resolve began to echo through Sekekama's territory, weakening the foundation of his rule. Meanwhile, within Sekekama's pride, tension simmered. His 3 favored sons, chafing under their father's strict control, grew increasingly restless. The lionesses, entering heat, became an irresistible temptation. When one of the princes dared to act on his desire, Sekekama delivered a brutal punishment, injuring the young male in a fierce clash. But this encounter revealed something significant to the princes. Their father, despite his strength, could be hurt. And perhaps, one day, he could be overthrown. Though Sekekama spared his sons and allowed them to remain within the pride, the rift between them grew. Eventually, he was forced to drive them out, banishing them to find their own way. The 3 young lions, now outcasts, wandered into new territory where they encountered the 4 vengeful lionesses. United by shared grievances, the outcasts and lionesses forged an alliance, with Satao seizing the opportunity to manipulate the young males into furthering her plans. The outcast sons found freedom and purpose in their new alliance. They established a stronghold near the river's source, enjoying the first taste of independence. Yet their new companions had their own agenda. Satao, ever the strategist, encouraged the young lions to look southward, to Sekekama's kingdom. The lionesses, refusing to mate until the young males ventured south to confront their father, wielded their influence with precision. With the arrival of the rains, Sekekama's pride returned to the revitalized southern swamps, where herds of prey thrived in the absence of crocodiles. Meanwhile, the outcast pride moved cautiously towards Sekekama's territory, driven by the lioness's insistence. Though reluctant to face their formidable father, the young lions couldn't resist the promise of victory and revenge. The stage was set for an inevitable clash as Sekekama's reign faced its greatest threat yet, from within his own bloodline. The dry seasons came and went, each year leaving its mark on the land and its rulers. Sekekama, now older and slower, had become a lion who ruled more with wisdom than brute force. His pride was strong, but even his dominance had its limits. Sekoti, in contrast, grew bolder with every victory. His northern kingdom flourished, and his reputation spread, whispered among lionesses and rival males alike. Sekoti wasn't just strong, he was strategic, wielding patience and cunning like weapons, traits he had inherited and refined beyond his father's own. The two kings, father and son, existed in a delicate balance. The south, with its swamps and herds, remained Sekekama's domain. The north, with its harsher terrain and scattered prey, belonged to Sekoti. But neither lion was content with peace. Sekoti's ambition was boundless. He had claimed the north, but his gaze was always fixed southward, where the throne of his father awaited. Sekekama, for his part, knew that Sekoti was no longer a prince to be dismissed. He was a king in his own right, a force that could not be ignored. The seasons passed, bringing the rains that transformed the land. The swamps filled, the rivers swelled, and herds moved south in their thousands. It was during one of these migrations that Sekoti made his first move. Leading a coalition of brothers and loyal lionesses, he ventured closer to Sekekama's territory. Sekoti did not attack outright. Instead, he tested the boundaries, challenging Torn Nose and the younger males who now guarded the pride. Torn Nose, scarred from his earlier encounter with Sekoti, held his ground, but knew the tide was turning. The younger lions, though loyal to Sekekama, began to question whether they should stand with the aging king or align with the rising power of Sekoti. Sekekama, ever watchful, prepared for the inevitable confrontation. He knew Sekoti would not stop until he claimed the southern throne. The old king gathered his strength and his pride, positioning himself as the protector of their home. But deep inside, Sekekama understood that time was no ally. The rains, which brought life to the land, also signaled the beginning of the end for his reign. Sekoti, however, was not without his own challenges. The lionesses of the north, under Satao's lingering influence, continued to manipulate events from the shadows. They drove Sekoti's ambitions, promising loyalty, but harboring their own plans. Satao, though frail with age, remained a master of strategy. Her hatred for Sekekama burned as brightly as ever, and she saw Sekoti as the perfect weapon to deliver the vengeance she had craved for so long. When the time came, Sekoti launched his campaign. The young king led his coalition southward, avoiding direct conflict at first. He split his forces, sending brothers to disrupt Sekekama's hunting grounds, while he personally confronted Torn Nose once more. This time, Sekoti's experience and power were undeniable. The battle was swift and decisive, leaving Torn Nose defeated and driven away. Word of Sekoti's advance reached Sekekama, and the old king prepared for what he knew would be his final battle. Surrounded by his most loyal lionesses and the few sons who had not joined Sekoti, Sekekama stood resolute. The two kings met at the edge of the swamp, their prides watching from a distance. The fight was brutal, a clash of generations. Sekoti, young and strong, attacked with the ferocity of a lion who had everything to prove. Sekekama, seasoned and wise, fought with the precision of a king who had everything to lose. Blow after blow, the battle raged, the roars echoing across the land. But age could not be denied. Sekekama's strength, though formidable, began to wane. Sekoti, relentless and unyielding, saw his opportunity and delivered the final strike. Sekekama fell, not as a defeated lion, but as a king who had ruled with unmatched power for years. His death was not the end of his legacy, but the beginning of Sekoti's reign as the ruler of both the north and south. With Sekekama gone, Sekoti ascended as the undisputed king, uniting the territories under his rule. The lionesses, once divided, now followed Sekoti, their loyalty secured through his victories. Even Satao, who had schemed for so long, finally saw her revenge fulfilled. But Sekoti, ever the strategist, ensured that no lioness would hold too much power in his kingdom. He ruled with a blend of strength and intelligence, a king shaped by his father's lessons and his own experiences. The cycle of life continued. Sekoti's reign marked the beginning of a new era, one where his name would be spoken with both fear and respect. Yet, in the shadows of the swamp and the dunes of the north, younger lions watched and waited, their own ambitions growing. For even the mightiest king must one day bow to the next challenger, as the unending story of the wild carries on. Yet long before Sekekama's reign, another predator ruled its domain with unmatched dominance. This was the largest tiger to have ever lived. To learn all about this prehistoric giant, its awe-inspiring power, and its place in history, click on this video right here.